Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers of DMRTV. You're welcome to this Friday's edition of your evening time debate talk show on DMRTV. Mountain Echoes, recall that Mountain Echoes come your way this time every Mondays to Friday. That's from 7:45 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we look at contemporary societal issues cutting across from politics, society, economy, and otherwise. We examine these issues with our experts on the panel and give you a deeper understanding on the issues at stake. And in this edition, it's not going to be any different. It is actually a special edition because we have just one guest on our panel today. We are going to be looking at the situation that is affecting and plaguing Buea, connected to the current Anglophone crisis, the imbroglio that has hit the northwest and the southwest regions. I am Jude, your host for tonight, and my guest is already here on the panel. When we come back after this breather, we are going to introduce this personality together we are going to be looking at the issue at stake. Recall that DMRTV is on your cable network. It is on satellite. It is, you can equally follow us on social media platforms as Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube, DMRTV, and you'll be able to watch this program live tonight. So I'll be back in a jiffy to introduce my guests and the topic as we roll on in this edition. You're welcome back to Mountain Echoes, beaming live from Buea in Cameroon. And this is DMRTV's Evening Time Show. Now, my guest tonight is a prominent personality in the political scene of Cameroon. His name resonates a lot of ideas in your mind when you see him on your screen in a short while. He is Barrister Felix Agbor Nkongho BALLA, popularly called Agbor BALLA. He is a human rights a lawyer and the president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, CHRDA, with headquarters here in Buea, southwest Cameroon. He is versed with human rights issues and is one of those who have watched the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the country evolve from one stage to another. Now, Agbor BALLA has also been enveloped in plenty of controversies within his ability to fight for human rights in the country. He has been able to fight them through. He has also had his high and low moments. This evening, we are going to discover this personality more, and equally, our main focus tonight is the killing in Buea. The recent killings in Buea, and most, to be precise, most especially that which involves the tricky one that involves two students of the University of Buea. You'll be getting details in this edition. There's a lot of misinformation and fake news surrounding this issue of two university students and the killing of some persons in Buea municipality. So in this edition, we are going to be bringing all that to the table and giving you an insight. But recall that you can join our discussion tonight by simply reaching out to the numbers you'll find on your screens very shortly. Most definitely, the numbers are there. There are indications from our producers that the number is already on your screen. You can send us the questions you want our guest, Barrister Felix Nkongho, to answer, or you just write on our YouTube or our Facebook. We will be able to get your reactions on the discussion. So, let's get it rolling. Barrister Felix Nkongho Agbor BALLA, good evening, and thank you very much for honoring the invitation.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. This is the first time I'm coming into your studio, but I follow your program, and I think it's very educative, it's very enriching, and it's for me to say thank you for inviting me. It's truly an honor to be here today.
Right. Barrister, not every body has the courage to talk, because from the standpoint which I am, not everybody has the might to talk on issues, political issues of our society today. So we want to appreciate you for coming. Now, this evening we are going to be looking at the killings that have been happening here in Buea, and we are going to be very specific about the case of 2 students of the University of Buea. But before we come there, I would like you to quickly, for the sake of information, and to those who are watching for the very first time who do not know who you are, in your own words, who is Barrister Felix Agbor?
You know, it's very difficult to talk about yourself, but I will try as much as possible Barrister Nkongho Felix Agbor, who grew up in Great Support. My mom used to call me Agbor Showboy. And then I moved to Agbor and became a lawyer. I went to Sase College, grew up here in Buea. There on the university, Nigerian Law School, where I was called to the Nigerian Bar in 1996. I went to further studies in Fry University in Brussels, University of Notre Dame in Indiana, amongst others. Then I worked in the UN in Sierra Leone at the International Criminal Tribunal as a legal officer, then moved to Afghanistan where I worked as a human rights officer, then came to the DRC where I worked as a legal officer in charge of UN police, then went back to Afghanistan as a legal officer in Kabul before I decided to come back to Cameroon. I'm a passionate person against injustice, believe in the rule of law, fight for human rights. Certain tenets that I learned from my dad, who used to be in the labor union when he was working with Sonel. He used to be part of the leaders of the labor union. And I think the way he got himself involved in solving people's problems or cases and fighting for those he felt were the downtrodden probably inspired me a lot. And with the kind of protest literature I used to read as a boy, you know, having icons like Bathy Bisong, Gani Fawimi, Wole Soyinka, amongst others, Bob Marley and Alpha Blondy, all of them shaped me to be who I am today.
So, I mean, that's quite a rich profile for someone who's been out of the country, worked with the UN, to decide to come back and stay in Buea, where we have plenty of tension. What would have been the motivation coming back home to stay here and fight from here? Well, whatever fight in quote.
You see, in life, people have what makes them happy. And when I used to work in the UN, or when I used to live abroad, because I stayed in Belgium for close to 8 years, did my master's, started a PhD, abandoned before moved to the US, I would always come to this country at least 3 times a year, you know. I was connected to Cameroon. And don't forget, as a young boy in my early 20s, I had a football team. I had a 3rd division team that went to 2nd division before I was going to law school in 95. I was the president of one of the most famous intercartier teams, Sampdoria. That was when I was like 21. You know, I tried my hand in publishing. I ran New Broom magazine. So I've done diverse kind of things, but I realized that I was very interested with what was going on in Cameroon. Be it when I was in Belgium, when I was in the US, when I was in DRC. CHRDA was created in the US while we were students in the US. And I would come to this country on vacation and we would do workshops. You know, so I was passionate. And there's a time when you feel that you don't get satisfaction just about money. To be honest, paying the UN is wonderful. Right. Okay? Made you lots of money. Travel the world, you know, different exposure. But there was something in me that, you know, I told one of my friends in the US a couple of years ago that, you know what, I want to come back to Cameroon. I felt that my calling was to come back here. I felt I had to serve my people. I had, in one way or the other. And that is why I came back to Cameroon. Fortunately, when I came back, I got a job at the University of Buea. Well, I opened my law firm. CHRDA was operational. I got a job at the University of Buea. And to me, it was a way of giving back to my community. Because I also believe in giving back, you know. It's not just about money. A legacy is not based on money.
Right.
And I believe rightly that I saw my father. I saw the things that made him happy. I saw how he was happy when I engaged in political debates. When people talked to him about me, I saw how important that was to him. And I think I learned a lot. And to me, it was about giving back to my community. That's why I came back to this country.
Right. I mean, it would have been a good wish that you came back and then things had gone well. But unfortunately, when you came back, things didn't go well. And since 2016, that the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest started, you have been one of those at the forefront of the situation. Sometimes things like this come with blessing. Has it been a blessing to you, or you still find it a difficult time?
It's a combination of both. You see, the idea, fighting against injustice, fighting against oppression and suppression, fighting against the way they treated us, they treat us in this country, it's a very wonderful fight. And I think that everybody and anybody would like to fight, so that one is good. But the way things morphed into, nobody would appreciate it. Nobody would support the kidnappings, the killings, the arbitrary and unlawful detention, the ransom taking, the burning down of schools and markets and homes. Nobody would appreciate that. So it's a kind of a mixed feeling, especially for one who was in the mix at the beginning, because I happen to be the president of the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium.
Right.
That was the bedrock of, because, we've had protests before, right? It's not like we invented the wheel, but I think we started, there was a new generation of Anglophone leaders who looked at things differently and who felt that it was high time that we would draw the attention of the national and international community on what is going on in the country. And I think we set the ball rolling. The outcome is not a reflection of what we wanted. I think all the parties would, in a way, would accept some form of blame. I like to look forward. I'm not someone who is interested in the blame game. Now it's how do we come out from this logjam? To me, that's what is more important.
Right. Now, that's why it's more important. So at this moment, it is 2016 to now, it's close to 6 years or so. It's 17 when we actually started. 6 years or so. Now, when you look at 6 years down the road, what appraisal can you really make in a very brief way? What can you really make of the Anglophone crisis for these 6 years?
Well, one thing I would say, reawakening of Anglophone consciousness. If that's one thing that I would say, there's been a reawakening of Anglophone consciousness. And I think everybody has realized that they will not treat us as underdogs in this country, and it's not business as usual. That's what I would think. But also, I've been shocked by the bestiality. I've been shocked by the glorification of people being killed by Anglophones. This is something that in my wildest imagination, I would not believe that people would celebrate the killing of whosoever. That's something that has really shocked me in this crisis.
You own an international structure, the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, where you've been doing documentation of these atrocities over the years. And the international community has been working with your figures, Human Rights Watch and many others. What are the figures? What are the statistics? Can we have an overview of what the statistics in terms of people who have been killed so far?
Well, the statistics is very fluid. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day, someone is killed. And because it's the kind of asymmetric war we have, and because of the fact that not all the places of this country in the southwest and northwest are safe, you cannot really have precise data in terms of what is happening. So most of the times, it's kind of approximated, number of killed. We were done some report on the number of villages burned, but a few days ago, another village was burned. Those in detention, some people are released today, some are arrested the next day. So it's difficult, but it's not a good picture. It's a very sad picture. It's very sickening when you look at the people who have lost their lives, when you look at those who have lost their limbs, those who have lost their jobs, those who cannot go to school, those who cannot living because of the economic strangulation, those who have been kidnapped and paid ransom, those who are currently in detention. It's gloomy.
Right.
It's very sad, and I think that anybody in his right senses would work towards the return to normalcy.
All right. Now, before we get to other aspects of you, that's in terms of your policies, your own philosophy and political ideology in Cameroon, we want to focus more on this talking point of today, which is the recent killings here in Buea, and to be particular about the case of some university students who were equally entangled in this situation. Now, yesterday was the 30th of March, and we had a communique from the University of Buea, from the Vice Chancellor's office, Professor Nkongho Harris Manga. It says the Vice Chancellor wishes to inform the University of Buea community and the general public that contrary to information circulating on the media, social media platforms, the person whose corpses were seen in Buea were neither students nor members of the university community. Nonetheless, two students of the University of Buea, namely Ngule Linus Fonte, LP matriculation number LP 20C610, a level 400 student of international relation, and Mbo Jires Akwa, LP 22P240, a level 600 student of public administration, were apprehended by the forces of law and order to assist them in their investigation of some terrorist activities. Unfortunately, Linus Ngule died while in custody. The university has been informed that an autopsy has been ordered to be carried out in the presence of family to ascertain the cause of death. The other student, Mbo Jires, however, is still in police custody. This is signed yesterday by Professor Nkongho Harris Manga, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buea. Now, for some time now, there has been some mix-up on the situation of these two students from the University of Buea. Two corpses were found in Buea and paraded along that street. People have been saying these corpses are those of the two students of the University of Buea. But we are told here that one died not in that situation and the other is still in detention. These intricacies, these manipulations, the population, many people in Buea and beyond do not understand what is going on, because the information that has gone out there is that these two students were the ones paraded in Buea. So you are a human rights lawyer and you've been following this up for some time now. We really like that you edify the population at this juncture.
Well, the first thing is that I appreciate the fact that the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buea came out with a statement. I think it was a bit too little too late, but better late than never. This statement comes 2 weeks after we had issued a statement, and if you read the VC statement, it's like just copying and paste what we wrote in our statement. Shows that at least
when you say our, you mean
the CHRDA.
Yeah.
CHRDA made a statement. I made a statement immediately it happened, and they had to invite me to go to Semil. Semil, the military security office, and the Malingo Road going to Buea. And so, because Linus' father, and both Linus who died and Jires' father, they had come to my office at CHRDA to brief us about what was happening, that they could not find Linus and Jires, they could not find Jires, and that Linus was dead. Upon our investigation that led us to Semil, we could confirm with certainty that Linus died during investigation. He started having some malaise, and they took him to the military hospital where he died, and his corpse was at the Buea mortuary, the regional hospital. But Jires was detained at Semil as of when I went there, because I had a conversation with him. Jires happened to be a young man who follows what we do on social media, just like Linus also, who died. So I would state categorically here that the two gentlemen who were killed in Ekona and brought to Buea, were not the students.
Right.
Okay, that's clear. A lot of people talked about that when we issued a statement that we did not mention that it was Moja, but the two corpses that Moja was parading with, they were not the students. So that is clearly that has been settled, because I have met the jurist who is alive and spoken to him, and it's fact I met the father also, and I told him that jurist alive. I think they had but what we said in the statement was that, one, that they should conduct an autopsy, and the family of Linus should be involved in the entire process, because perception matters a lot nowadays. Okay, if this boy died in the custody of Semil, then there is a need for the state to finance the autopsy.
Right. The
family is going through a lot of psychological trauma, and you cannot keep it to wait because you are waiting from others in Yaoundé. But not just equally an autopsy. They have to also open an investigation to ascertain what actually happened. And the law of this country makes provision for the Cameroon Human Rights Commission, who has the mandate to visit detention centers to carry out an investigation in cases where torture is committed. This falls in line with the additional protocol on the Convention of the Law on Torture. You know, so it's clearly something. So not only an autopsy, but a proper investigation. Because if everybody who is arrested on allegation that he's a separatist or he's a terrorist, no matter how you look at it, if everybody who is arrested has to die during interrogation, then we don't need to have our courts. Not so. But the rule of law, the process, due process, is that you are arrested, you know, you are handed to the competent authority to try, you know, to do investigation, and then you go for trial. And when they find you guilty, the court will have to convict you for the crimes you have committed. Not so. And for like Linus who died, some responsibility, you know, because I read on social media that you know, they were terrorists. Let's assume for discussion purposes, because for now we don't have any evidence to actually prove. Let's assume they were terrorists. They still need to have their day in court,
right?
Because that's the process. For Jures who is alive and in custody, the investigation, I got word that it's been transferred to the gendarmerie. You know, Jures, the process has to be done. He has to be investigated, and if found guilty, the law should take its course. You know, because nobody is holding brief for anyone who
committed crime.
Okay, yeah. But I don't like the spinning on social media where they give information, you know, to try to determine the debate. And also, as from a human rights perspective, I am not in a position to confirm whether what Jires was saying, he had the mental capacity at that time to say what he was saying. Had it been induced? Has he been tortured? I think it's for the law courts. You know, that is why we did not call for his release. We called for an investigation. Because that is what is supposed to be done. That's what a professional, you know, Mr. Mbaku, the problem is that people have become very emotional, and we don't understand that a human rights lawyer, these are professions also. I worked in the UN as a human rights officer, meaning that I've investigated, I've monitored in worst cases. I mean, I did Afghanistan, I did Mazar in the north. You know, I went to Kunduz, I went to Pulikomeri. You know, I went to the heart of General Massoud's area in the north. You understand? What is happening here pales in comparison. But it's the same process. You have to investigate, you have to monitor, you have to document. But where you have doubt, you cannot apportion blame. So you don't only double check, you triple check. So that's why at times when one issues a statement and says unknown persons, that is from a professional perspective.
People pick it on social media to think it's cowardice. But you cannot call names when you have not, you are not very certain.
Right.
I'll give you an example. When the incident happened, everybody blamed Moja Moja.
Because he was seen on the video. That could be an incriminating incident.
I followed up everything and I issued a statement which I did not say was Moja Moja. I mean, I don't think we are best of friends with Moja Moja because several times we have condemned his atrocities. But not because you don't like Moja Moja, you would jump to conclusion for something he did not do, because he too has his rights, and you have to rise above your emotion. You have to rise above whatever camp or side you are supporting the conflict. For me, as a human rights defender, as a human rights lawyer, my side is a stride of truth, of justice, of fairness, to the best of my ability and my knowledge. You might not like what I am saying, but if what I'm saying is what I believe is true, and as we speak, we were proven right that it was not Moja Moja who killed the students. It was proven right that Jires was not dead. I mean, you can tell from the other communique with the one from the Vice Chancellor. So what I'm appealing to the population is that don't just jump into conclusion, because you already try to bring people's image into disrepute. You try to condemn people before getting the facts. I understand that when people see dead bodies, when people hear that,
they go emotional.
Everybody gets emotional.
Yes.
But I don't expect that coming from professionals. The rank and files. I expect people who are not trained could do that. But those who are trained, I don't expect that kind of information. That is why some of their statements or communiques can never stand the test of time. It's just good for the dustbin. It's good for the garbage. For some social media zealots would.
So what you're saying is that there are people who are supposed to respect this rights, and you've seen them violating them by means of social media.
Yes.
And the social media has created more harm in this crisis.
No, well, the social media is a good thing. I'm a social media freak. I like using it, but we should not use it for the wrong reasons. You understand? And people should, when somebody posts something, or when you're posting something, ask, what is the purpose of you posting this thing? Do you have your information right? Is your information correct? You understand? And are you inciting violence? Are you inciting hatred? Are you trying to derail the debate? Are you spinning? You understand? Because these are also things that those posting on social media should also. But what I've noticed is that because we're in a very polarized society, surrogates of the regime will take it and spin it. Those who believe in the Amazonian struggle also, they will take it and spin it. So at the end of the day, it's very difficult to decipher who is saying what.
Yeah.
But I think that those who have followed us would agree the fact that we try to rise above this divide, because we don't only look at the country, we look at those reading us out of the country, and you can put your reputation at stake if you are known to spread false information.
Barrister, now those who are watching might be confused and not understanding the connect between Moja Moja, who is supposed to be the chief of, who is the chief of Buea. Yeah, Moja Moja, we equally have the students and the two guys who were seen in Munya. What's the connect? How did they come
because it happened. We first saw the video of Moja Moja in Munya, where they had paraded the two dead bodies, and then within a very few minutes or hours, we heard that two students had been killed. That was the information on social media.
Right.
So most people thought that those two students who were killed were those two people were killed were the students. And because also is guilt by association, or when people don't like you, everybody put it on Moja Moja's head. Until we came out, and I came out, and I issued a statement because Professor Chad also been killed in Bamenda. I talked about the killings of the two so-called Amber Boys and Professor Chad. I mean, that let's put an end to this bestiality, and condemn the killing and the glorification of these bodies which were being paraded, So that's why most people thought that they were the bodies of Linus and Jires. Okay,
Right.
it is alleged that they got the two Amber boys as a result of communication between Jires, Linus, and some other Amber leaders. That's what is alleged. You understand? So yes, one could still say there was a nexus between the two of them, the two students, and the killing of the so-called Amber boys. But it would have to be proven, in a court of law before we can conclusively conclude that that is actually what happened.
So, Barrister, in cases like this, where we have Jires with one of the students still in detention, and we know that the other one, Linus, is gone, the autopsy we await, in this kind of situation, where's the way forward? How will justice meet Jires?
Well,
Do you see the setup as that which will permit for him to be heard?
Yeah, for justice not only to be done, that should be seen to be done. First thing is that Jires has a right to counsel, has a right to a lawyer, because if you follow the 2014 anti-terrorism law, he would be, whatever charges they will bring against him will be punishable by the death penalty, and it's mandatory for him to have a lawyer of his choice. If he cannot afford a lawyer, the state will have to provide him a lawyer from our legal aid. So the first thing is that he should. I read on social media Barrister Tamfu and Co saying that the family had been briefed. I know that Jires' father had been in our office and Barrister Sona was following up. So that's something that they would have to clarify. I read on social media that I had.
Yes, I read as well on social media. I was about asking you.
That I'll come to
Yes.
that. I'll come to that. So what is expected to be done is for them to have lawyers and to ensure that due process is respected. That the questioning should be done in the presence of his lawyer. There should be no coercion. He should not be tortured physically or psychologically. And whatever statement that he signs, there might also be the need to do a medical check to check whether mentally he's okay. Things might happen. The way somebody will react under pressure, the fact that he stays in the same house with Linus is dead. How does that affect him psychologically? These are things that and then if he goes to court, he should have his day in court. Although if I was the state of Cameroon, I would look at other ways of rehabilitating some of the younger people who were arrested in connection with the crisis. I read on social media that I gave Jires a lawyer, that I recruited a lawyer for him, and that.
But is it wrong for that to be done?
No, it's one. He has a right to counsel, and the parents had come to the office. I recommended Barrister Sona to provide them pro bono for free legal support, because I think that's what we are doing. That's why I am here, to ensure that we can provide legal support for justice should not only be done, should be seen to be done. And if you read from the Cameroonian Constitution, Criminal Code, or the International Convention of Civil and Political Rights, right to counsel is a fundamental right. So it's nothing that some surrogates of the state would make it as if the information, if they have it right, it's like somebody went to the moon. There's no novelty in someone having a counsel. That is because even those who are propagating it, if they have a problem tomorrow, I would try to provide them counsel also.
Another issue that they tap you on is that you have been advocating that Jires be sent to the, if found guilty, should be sent to the DDR center instead of jail.
No,
is that right?
No, you see, you can have a private conversation that you make suggestions, you make recommendations. And I said, if I was the one, and I'm not the one. That's why in my statement I said investigations to be carried out. But if I were the one, I would look at a young man who has probably been radicalized by some non-score people who live abroad, who will not send their children to do what they are doing, who are living in their comfortable house, their kids are going to school, they are going to work, and the radicalized young men and women you know, for them to incite violence and hate against others. You know, I would consider him as a victim, because also it's part of reformation in the society. It's part of using some of them as an example to convince their friends, their peers, that hey, this is not what you are supposed to do. You should do this. I mean, that's why it's also reformatory. That's the essence of the penitentiary system. It's not just punish. You know, after all, we have people who decided to drop their arms and they went to the DDR.
Right.
They were not prosecuted. Some of them have committed heinous crimes. Some of them have killed people. Some of them took ransom. You understand? So this is because it's not every time that you have a hammer and everything in front of you is a nail. You understand? You need to be humane. And
the argument is that at the level of DDR, you calm yourself. You are remorseful about what you have done.
Yeah.
But this one that you are apprehended, you
I
have to face the law.
I'm just giving an example. I'm just giving an example. You understand? You could still face the law. They could still arrest you, and then they decide that, okay, you would serve some years in jail, and after that they will try to reform you.
But it should not be the death penalty.
No, it should not be the death penalty.
It's death penalty, by the way. Is death penalty an option still in the international scene as a human right?
Well, in Cameroon, it is in the law, but I can't remember when anybody was executed in this country. You understand? So yes, it's in the law in practice, but in theory, you know, we don't no.
In theory,
in the law it exists, but in practice we don't execute people in Cameroon.
Right. So I think it's a plus for the Cameroon.
Yes. No. That's something positive. Yeah.
Now, when we look at all these killings so far, we also want to be profiling the solution to this. The Anglophone crisis has lingered for a very long time. And being from the human rights perspective, I know that you've been in the middle. Is there any middle ground between? Is there any middle ground as far as a crisis like this is concerned? Can you really stand on the fence because you are a human rights advocate? We've had situations where government has come against you and many other human rights, and we've had equally situations where the people have come against you.
Yes.
So is there a situation where you stand on the fence, because it is often said that you're either for or against?
No. You see, it's not everything in life that is black and white. There are gray areas in life, and this is not a situation where when you fail to speak against oppression, it means you are supporting it. Okay, or vice versa. In what I do as a human rights advocate or human rights defender, the definition of a human rights defender is that any individual or group of persons who fight for or advocate for the protection and promotion of human rights in a non-violent means. Okay, that's the definition of human rights defender.
Right.
Non-violence. Okay, so I cannot be supportive of violence. I mean, be it violence from the state or violence from the Yamba. But Cardinal Tumi had told me something once, late Cardinal Tumi, may his soul rest in peace, that where both parties in a conflict attack you, it means you're doing something right. I've had lots of attacks from regime surrogates. I've had lots of attacks from Amber boys and their leaders. Some of them have gone on video that I should be killed. But why? Because we document. And don't forget, Mbaku, we don't create, we don't invent. We merely document and report what they have done. We don't get up at night and write stories. If they don't commit, we will not report. But when they commit, we must report. Because we are the watchdog in the community. And nobody, and I repeat, nobody would bully us. And nobody will bully me. Whether it's I've read from some regime surrogates asking questions, why am I still a free man? You know, I've read from some Amber boys saying that I don't really bother about what they say, because don't forget, there are people in the middle. There are people who might not be supporting the regime, but they don't necessarily support the Amber boys. Who would speak for them? These voices No, these people whose hands and limbs have been chopped.
On either part of the
somebody, some groupings have to speak for them. They might not be on social media. They don't have loud voices. They are not sitting on TV. Someone has to speak for them. And if it's incumbent on us, I personally think that it's one of my own mission in this world to speak against oppression, to speak against atrocities perpetuated by whoever. And I really don't care whoever perpetuates it. We would name, we would condemn, and we would shame you until whoever is doing that would stop.
All right. Now, let us just take a quick look again at the case with Jerez and Linus to say that in situations like this, what's the population called upon to do? The case is maybe it's in court or still at the level of investigative military people. What should the population really do?
Well, I mean, just to exercise some patience and just believe in the system, believe in the justice system, for justice to take its course, but also watching and advocating. Advocating also, because it seems as if we have outsourced our advocacy to a group of people, individuals or associations. They are the ones to take the bullet for the other people. You understand? I think if we rise as one person and call on the Semil, call on the governor to ensure that an autopsy is done and proper investigation is conducted, it would help. But when you leave it just for a few people to do it, it's easier for people to trail and troll those few people, insult them, attack their personality, and threaten to kill them. But if everybody in the community, because this is one death too many, okay, it affects everybody. We have a shared humanity, meaning that if one person is affected, all of us are affected. And if we don't speak out today, tomorrow it might be you. You understand? That's what we forget. So nobody is condoning whoever to kill innocent civilians.
Right.
I don't support a student to kill people, just like I don't support the military to kill those who are not involved in active hostility. And we are all Cameroonians. You know, how do we try to build in this current dispensation? How do we try to win the minds and hearts of others, you know, so that we can find a solution and reduce the casualty? To me, that's the focus on, not justifying, you know, not glorifying, not gloating over somebody who has been killed, not making a mockery that somebody has been compromised and sent to Maryland. Okay, that's somebody who is dead. Or like when Amber people, they killed civilians or the military and they put it on social media and their surrogates or their fans are happy. If you kill a military guy, they have family, they have children, they have relatives, they have friends, just like if you kill a civilian. So to me, any death, if it's preventable, I'll be happy, because I believe that it's one death too many.
But the challenge you have is that while you preach and practice what you grow up doing, which is human rights defense, the challenge you have at this juncture is that the crisis started with you, and you were one of those who started advocating for this. Now, at a certain point, you had a U-turn, and the people now, those who are at the extreme, are looking at, why would this man leave us at the middle of the waters? If there's one thing you regret about the entire crisis, what is that thing?
The first thing is that, have I made a U-turn? No. You know, I've been consistently consistent. And I challenge the people who shifted the post. At no point in time did the Cameroon Anglophone Civil Society Consortium clamor for separation. At no point in time did we call for the use of arms and weapons and ammunition. At no point in time did we call for attack of the civilian population, to attack the military. So, the people who took over from us when we went to jail, they shifted the post. But they are trying to spin it to give the impression that we caved out. No. And in a revolution, people adjust and adapt. Everybody finds his or her own niche. Prior to the consortium, we had been documenting human rights violations. I still have violations that took place, I think 28 October or 28 November, when students were robbed in mud in University of Buea.
Right.
We had been documenting things prior to that, okay? CHRDA had organized workshops and conferences at Alliance Franco-Camerounese on protection and promotion of human rights. We have current ministers in government today who were panelists. At that time, they were not ministers. We have board members of ELECAM today who were panelists. We have senators today who were panelists. So we've always been in the milieu of trying to do sensitization, education on human rights issues. Okay? So when I read on social media that I've not given up. You know, it's just that people want you to do what they want. You understand? Right. They saw you. I was the leader of this consortium to fight for XYZ. I wasn't a leader of a separatist movement, but they still want you to be. I don't believe, as an individual, I don't believe in separation. Okay.
So what is that XYZ you were fighting?
No, for example, okay, we talked about the erosion of the common law, for example, not so the problems faced by our educational subsystem, amongst others. You know, so at no point in time, and we analyzed everything and we said that all these problems could be solved if we have a federation. Okay, at no point in time did I, in all my interviews, unfortunately these interviews are online, did I espouse on dividing the country? Because I'm a Pan-Africanist. I look at the way the world is. The world is getting smaller. You know, these micro states don't really work. I take South Sudan. I have my sister and three of my former staff working in South Sudan as we speak. I know the country. Okay, they are barely surviving. So these micro states, these small states don't work. There is a need for us to come together as one in the continent. I will not be advocating for the breakup of Cameroon because our strength is our unity in diversity. Okay? We have wonderful brothers and sisters across the Congo, you know, who we'd like to live with them. We have some of them living here with us, you know, because of our historical situation.
So, Basta, within this time, you worked a lot with late Natumi, and his ideas too were that of a united Cameroon, but we both focus on federalism.
Yeah.
Why do you think federalism remains the best form of governance in today's Cameroon?
In a multi-ethnic country, federalism is ideal. It will not solve all the problems. Okay, Nigeria is a federal country, has its own problem, but it's better than the farce that we have today, called unitary decentralization or whatever name they are giving it. You understand? It would be better for us. I mean, you need to bring governance closer to the people. You know, they need to be responsible for who governs them. They should be voting their governors. In 2023, we cannot be having governors being sent from Yaoundé. I really don't think
Is the problem really the governor? No, the situation of the Measure National Dialogue brought us regional assemblies, and we've seen many other. Does that, just to relate, does that solve any
well,
situation?
You see, it's not one size fits all. It's kind of very holistic. You understand? So you have the governors also who would constitute a problem. You have other facets, you know. The Major National Dialogue came with its own. We had a regional house, okay? The regional house was hailed as Father Christmas in town. But you can clearly look at the leadership of the regional house and you would see that they are still apologists of the regime. I don't think they have the guts, you know, they have the balls, if I use the word, to be able to go against what the regime wants. So in a way, it's more cosmetic, you know, because these are people also, in my estimation, they don't really have legitimacy of the common man, you know, the way they were brought in there to satisfy, you know, kind of bamboozle the population. It's kind of feel-good factor. Let them know that, okay, we have one of theirs, but I don't think anybody's fooled. That's why the average person in our community doesn't even understand what they're actually doing there.
Right. So, but one more thing, Barrister, when you look globally, I mean, we are discussing these things now from a global perspective because the killings are still on, and they will not. We don't see them stopping anytime soon. They kind of the speed at which they are going. But when you look at federalism, there are many other facets in Cameroon society today that buy to the idea, especially political parties like the Social Democratic Front. And talking about political parties, we have SDF. The SDF offered you an opportunity on the 16th of June 2022 when the national chairman John Frundi appointed you as a shadow cabinet minister for the SDF in charge of judicial and legal affairs. But you turned down this opportunity. So how do we go about if people like you don't want to get into the political arena?
Man is a political animal. Means that everybody plays politics. If you don't play politics, politics will play you. But I'm not in partisan politics for the time being.
Okay.
You understand? And it was an honor for me to be appointed. I felt good that at least they considered me worthy to be a minister in the shadow cabinet. But I think the moment was not right. I have other things that I'm focused on. And, probably when the time comes, I might decide to get into partisan politics. But for the time being, I am not in any way connected or linked to any political party. Never been.
But you are advocating for a leader of Cameroon from Anglophone origin.
Yes.
How would that leadership come from? You don't want arms? You don't want political?
You see,
or you want some other person to be there?
But in a society, people would do different things. Okay? That's why even the Bible says there's a time to plant, there's a time to harvest. And when we were doing basic economics, they talked about division of labor. There are people who are going to be politicians, there are people who are going to be human rights advocates, there are people who are going to be university lecturers. That's how the society has to work. And I believe in the fact that it's not an all or nothing affair. You understand? Like, if you are not there, the world will come to an end. Okay? For the time being, I think we have people who can do it, who can even do it better. Someday we might decide to get into politics. But if we don't, you can still make a meaningful contribution to the life of your country without necessarily becoming politics. I know Krumah said, seek it first the political kingdom. You understand? But there are people who have carved their niche also in what they are doing. They perfect it to a way that they get the recognition that they deserve without actually. I won the Kennedy Award with Maximilian Gombe. I mean, for a human rights perspective, this is the biggest that you can have.
Right.
It's like winning the Champions League. It's like winning the Oscars. Perhaps if I was a politician, I might not have gotten that kind of recognition. I might not have been a good politician. You understand? So you have to be comfortable in your comfort zone and understand that. Use your strength to the best of your ability. I am not saying that politics is not good. I'm not saying that I might not get into politics someday. But as we speak, as we sit here, this date of today, 31st March,
2023.
I am not in partisan politics.
Great. Now, are you one of those who hold that the crisis in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon can come to an end today if we have an Anglophone as president of this country?
As I said, it is no one size fits all. It's still very holistic. You put other things together, it will contribute in winning the minds and hearts of the people. Some of the leaders abroad might see reason to tone down their rhetoric and work towards some meaningful changes. You understand? So if you have an Anglophone president that comes with accompanying constitutional changes on the form of a state, on other issues, then it is appealing. But not just having an Anglophone president, would solve all the problems. But also, it would help. You understand? And we've had the president from the north and the president from the Grand South, taking into consideration the history of this country, how we came about, I would always argue that it's time for an Anglophone to be given the opportunity.
2025 is not far.
Yeah.
2025 is not far, and this is an opportunity where Anglophones would have used to have one of their own as a president of the country to test how it feels to be at a 2D. Now, we have a serious problem with the crisis, voter apathy. People don't want to hear about election. SDF is crumbling, all political parties. What, in your capacity, what should the population know and do as from now?
I think the first thing is that there is leadership vacuum in Anglophone Cameroon. There's a need for us to re-strategize and build synergy across the board in Anglophone Cameroon. There's a need for a new wave of politicians. People who look at politics differently. People who are able to build bridges amongst, not only amongst their friends, but also with people they don't necessarily agree with. There's a need for kind of a rainbow coalition in Anglophone Cameroon. Because the others, you see the Northerners with Gibai's project on 10 million Northerners to be registered. You see some other people are calling for their particular candidates to be their to run for president. Anglophones are the only ones that are not united, agreed on a particular thing. And if we are not careful, we'll come out empty-handed. We'll be the biggest losers. And I'm calling on all Anglophone leaders, civil society, opinion leaders, young men and women to think about coming together and identify leadership or leaders that they can work with.
We are already in 2023.
Yes, yeah, it's also yes, I know. It's also important that no matter what we do, people should be encouraged to register. Okay. And I challenge civil society to get involved also. Most people might be apathic, they might not support political parties, but they might listen to civil society. You understand? Because there is no way that you are not involved in the process and you want to have gains from the process.
Right.
And the elections in 2025 would be very important. I'm not talking about the presidential only. The municipal and legislative elections. It's the municipal election that would determine those who would go to the regional house. And it's those in the regional house and the municipal councillors that will vote the Senate also. So it's very important that Anglophones get leaders who would fight for them, who would protect their interests. It's unimaginable that after 6 years of conflict, the CPDM is more entrenched in the Southwest and the Northwest. In the number of parliamentarians, number of senators, number of municipal councillors and mayors. You cannot spend your time only boycotting and only criticizing. If you look at the situation in Palestine, Hamas went for elections. Okay? Even in Nigeria, the Fees went for election. They won. Yes, they were banned, but they made an attempt.
Right.
You need to have people who can sit in parliament and articulate your case. Because we've seen clearly that the gun has failed.
So at the moment, what you're saying is that at the moment, we have a weak political base in the Anglophone regions, and there's no one who can stand a chance, as to speak.
No. Do I say weak politically? I think we're not organized.
Okay.
We are not organized. And the conflict also has done a lot. The irony is that the conflict has helped the CPDM more than any other person in the Southwest region. I
was already going to talk about gains that some people have made and other structures.
The CPDM has gained a lot because those who are running for office can go to the field with armored cars, with military to protect them.
State resources.
Yes, but the opposition, they can't have it. So that's why it's easy for them to win. So I also think we have to have a shift of mindset, that people should understand that they can get involved in the process. They can bring change. It's not sufficient just to be writing on social media. Convince your neighbor, convince your family, your relatives to register. And let's hope that meaningful change can come through the ballot box.
But in the midst of all this fight, you have had awards locally and internationally. Many awards, I must say. And the last was that which you just mentioned in the U.S. Now, you have also published books, and I know that CHRDA just launched one not long ago. just in a fight in a struggle, in a bid to make sure that the population is kept abreast with what is happening, the international community as well. Where would this lead to? And where is it, by the way, leading to?
Well,
are there any positive response from the international community in quote?
Well, you see, advocacy grinds very slowly. You might do advocacy in 2023 and it matures in 2025, you know. The rapporteur in charge of human rights defenders, or they might be visiting Cameroon, for example. This is advocacy that has been done. You understand? Lots of other things have happened that is as a result of advocacy. At times laws are changed, laws are amended. It's because of advocacy. It will not happen overnight, you know, and people should not think that because you've not had results today, it means that people are not working. We document some of these atrocities. Let's assume that we have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission someday. It could be used for people to ask for forgiveness, for people to confess, for people to beg for pardon. If there's a tribunal created, for example, a special court for Cameroon, some of these documentations also would be used. But the book we launched, The Unheard Voices, is also to tell the stories of those who are not heard. Tell the stories for those who cannot sit on this platform and talk to you. Tell the stories of the average Bayam Selam, the Okada guy, the guy who lives in Furawa, the guy who lives in Akwaya, you know, who cannot be heard, you know, to document their voices. What are they basically saying? Enough is enough.
Right.
We have suffered enough. Those who have died, they are crying in their graves. Please, let our death not be in vain. Let peace come back to the motherland. Let peace reign. So that is in our own small way, we capture these voices so that when the decision makers, the powers that be with it, it might touch their consciences and they decide to wake up from their lethargy and not only talk, but walk the talk. Make an effort, you know, to talk to their brothers who have taken up arms against the state, that this is a time for us to find a permanent and a long-lasting solution.
Right. Well, if you're just joining us, you're live on DMRTV, and this is Mountain Echoes, where we talk critical issues. And tonight we are looking at the killings in Buea, and of course we with Barrister Felix Agbor, BALLA, who is a human rights lawyer and the president of CHRDA, that's the Center for Human Rights and Democracy, based here in Buea, Cameroon. And we'll be looking at the killings, especially the controversial issue of two students of the University of Buea who were entangled in some activities that are leading them into a prison. One is dead already, and the other one is still in police custody. But with your effort, Barrister BALLA has been able to describe a lot of things surrounding that case, and also he has been able to talk on plenty of issues in his life, politically and otherwise. But Barrister, I just want to find out at this juncture that despite the effort that you're putting in as human rights advocate and the awards that you've won, you had a very challenging moment even in terms of the people you fight for. They say in Africa, when you're fighting against an enemy, you also have to use the other hand in fighting against the person you're fighting for. You had a controversial issue which I wanted us to also talk on, which is the saga that happened in the University of Buea. You were accused that this good knowledge we are talking about here is not being transformed into the younger students of that university. You were taken out of that university on the 6th of May, according to a letter which was signed by the then registrar, Mullah NS PhD, the associate professor who was the registrar of the University of Buea. The letter also indicated that you didn't have a matricle number and had 2 years contract from 2015, which was renewable twice. You were accused of intoxicating the students with your political ideologies, and equally it declared that you were unqualified to teach the political and constitutional history of Cameroon in that university. Well, what remarks do you make?
Is that the official letter or the one that
No, there are points from the letter.
Okay, well, Molo happened to be my classmate in Sase.
Okay.
So that's the interesting thing. And I passed the O-level in Form 4 and I went to high school. So, but we are all classmates of the class of 83. I have a lot of respect for him as an individual. I don't want to talk about his person because I think that he spent a lot of time about my person. The focus is on the fact that I was unduly, unlawfully terminated from the University of Buea. But I'll tell you something. To me, teaching in the university was giving back to the community. They were paying me 241,000. That's what they were paying me in UB. But ask the University of Buea students in the law, they will tell you. I would not absent class. I would make sure I mark my CA on time. I would go beyond. I traveled to Canada with exam papers and I marked them. The Minister of Higher Education had investigated me more than twice. Whether I used to come to class, I had it. They showed him the cahier de text where I was signed. I was a committed teacher. I went beyond just teaching to act as role model to some of these students. And the irony is that in spite of the fact that I was dismissed from the university, last year the Law Society gave me an award as one of their most committed lecturers. Each year, that's the irony, each year University of Buea sent at least 70 students to our organization to train. Political science, conflict, gender, and law. Each year, I think we have the highest number of students. So if I were inciting them in the university where they had control over me, and you are still sending them to my organization where you don't have any control, don't you think it's an irony? It's my termination from UB was political, and they know it. I'll tell you something. In my estimation, I deserve a medal in that university. Why? And I'll tell you why. Why do I deserve a medal? That course was signed by my friend Dr. Fai. Okay? And they transferred Fai to Douala. And Fai was not coming to school. Like a week before CA, the HOD called me and begged me that Barrister BALLA, I know you can teach this course. Please help us. We are in a difficult situation. I came in as a fire brigade. I came in to save the department from an embarrassment. Imagine that students will not write a CA. I taught them one class and then gave them a CA. That's it. I deserve a medal, not a medal that people apply and bribe. I had to sit in my house and they gave me a medal for saving a situation. But lo and behold, because there were people, it had been written on social media a long time ago, some people were worried why I was still in the University of Buea. Why? Because whilst I was teaching there, I'm an independent-minded man, Mbaku. I will tell you the way it is. We will still issue our reports, okay? I will still go to the Human Rights Council and condemn government for what they're doing. I would still go abroad and say the things that they're doing which is not right. So they were not comfortable. And they felt that the only way, they were looking for a way out. And when they found a way out in a question, that similar questions had been given in other universities in this Cameroon and nothing is done, it was about the messenger, not the message. And they felt uncomfortable. Whenever my contract had not expired, okay, I was still there and they would have waited for my contract to expire and not renew it. But I'm not having any beef with the university. That's why every time I have the Human Rights Day, I was there in UB, because it's not about the head of the university. Right. It's about the student. And nobody should think that they own that university. Whether it's the VC, he's VC there just for the time being. We've had other VCs. We had Joma, we had Lambi, we had Chumbo, you understand? He would go like the others also. But I am looking at the students. I owe a duty to young Anglophones, young Cameroonians, to share my world of experience with them. And that's it. And that's what I was doing. So I don't think me not being there, I think they lost out in me not being there. It's not the 243 or 41,000 that was on. They lost out. You understand? Right. But I still, and I'll tell you something. And when I got to UB till date, and I want anybody to to give me a similar example. I have 4 of my students, 4, that I taught in the University of Buea. The 4 of them, I created a group and I called them future leaders. One of them, Ayamba, died when he was coming from law school. These 4 of them, they did an internship in my organization. They ended up after they graduated, they did the internship when they were in university. When they graduated, they came there, they did voluntary work. After that, I recruited them to work. And 4 of them that as I speak are working in the United Nations. Their first job in their life they ever had was internship and voluntary work in my office. Their first salary they earned. Some of them, I was responsible for their scholarship to go and study in my university in the US. As I speak with you, 4 of them are human rights officers in the United Nations.
Right.
So is this not giving back to your community? Do you know how many families those people feed? So when you terminate me from the university and you're happy, I'm like, no. The students are the ones to lose out, not me.
All right. Barrister, let me quickly take on this question because we have a few minutes to be together on the program tonight. This one says, are you satisfied? A question to Barrister. Are you satisfied with the statement from the university where a student dies after taking up to help in investigations?
You see, as I said in the beginning, it was a little bit late, the statement from the university, but better late than never. But I expected the military. They were the ones who are supposed to be doing this communication, because when you don't communicate, other people will get it and they will do communication. And it's unfortunate that Linus died, and I don't support it. That's why the university is also right to call for a proper an autopsy, but I think they should go further to ask for a proper investigation.
Okay, this other person, Kennedy from Yaoundé, is asking that concerning the crisis, we have different schools of thought. That which ends with decentralized state. Second point says federated state and separation. Where do you cast a vote? I think you answered that earlier.
I'm for a federated state.
A federated state. Okay, Barrister, as we quit this edition of the show, I want to quickly just wrap up with the topic tonight. What should be done? What's your ideal picture of a Cameroon that is encompassing the former British Southern Cameroon or the West Cameroon and the French Cameroon and the Anglophones and the Francophones? What's the future? What's the picture you envisage for the future?
A picture of a country where we live in peace and harmony with our brothers from all over Cameroon. A country where the rule of law, where respect for human rights, a country where the wealth of the country is shared, a country where injustice is something of the past, a country where we would feel that we belong in the way we are treated in this country. And I have hope for Cameroon. I have hope that this country would emerge, that from the ashes of this conflict, a more unified and a better country will come up. A country where there will be mutual respect by both the Francophones and the Anglophones, because these were brothers and sisters who came together to build a wonderful country. This is a wonderful experience. The French and the English coming together, it's a wonderful experience. Yes, it would not be without its problems, just like in any marriage. How do we work out a solution without walking out of the marriage or the relationship when it's not a going concern? To me, that's the key. And both Francophones and Anglophones have the responsibility, the task, to build national unity. Not only to preach national unity, but to work towards nationality. And the state also, in its action, in its commission, and in its omission, must ensure that they build a unified country. Not just in the talk. Because when you look at some appointments in this country, you ask yourself a series of questions. When you look at the number of DOs, SDOs, governors, ministers, and head of parastatals of some particular regions, you ask yourself the question, is this really a unified country? Do they consider us as brothers and sisters? Are we really one, or we are just some second-class citizen? I want a country where everyone would be a first-class citizen, where everyone with his or her ability can attain the highest position in the state, where there will be respecter of individuals and not respecter of institutions, where there will be respecter of you for who you are, not for where you come from or who you know. If we build on these tenets of this kind of respect, we will build a paradise terrestrial on earth. Because I've hardly seen a country that has the natural and the human resources and the resilience that we have as a people. It just needs leadership. The lack of political will is the bane of our problems in this country. I think that if we have leadership that puts the people first, that have the interests of the people at heart, that works for the people, for the welfare and the well-being of each and every one in this country, every Cameroonian would be smiling. And there will be the need for all of them to individually and collectively work for the betterment of the country.
And on this lighter note, we are talking at the moment where we just had the senatorial elections, and we are expecting President Paul Biya to appoint 30 more senators to fill the gap that is in the Senate right now. What if you assume, just assume that President Biya appoints you tomorrow as the senator of the state, and we need to live together? Would you also turn it down like you turned the SDF appointment?
One, they will not appoint me. Two, I'm not interested in being a senator.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Barrister Felix Agbor, BALLA, thank you very much for your time on Mountain Echoes tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. I think it's been a very interesting discussion, and I appreciate your support also to CHRDA, because every time we have invited you for an event, you've been there. So right. Your support also is something that I've recognized, and I think that's one of the reasons that I personally came here tonight also to let you know that we appreciate what you're doing, we appreciate what this media house is doing, and we appreciate what the bishop is doing.
Great. One is to ensure that we also follow the path of human rights and human dignity, because that's what the church preaches. We're here to ensure as well that we give a light of hope to everyone who is human out there. That's Barrister Felix Agbor Nkongho, BALLA. He is the president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, and human rights lawyer who has been very prominent on the Cameroon national scene for a very long time now. He was our guest on Mountain Echoes. We want to thank you as well for watching, and hoping that you will have more time in our company on DMRTV. I've been Jude. Have a blessed evening.